Okay, so now that we know that the two projects can see each other, or at least the test can see the domain project, what I want to do is delete both of these default classes. It's easier to just start over and rename things that way. I'm going to right click and select add new item. Now I could select add new unit test or order test, but I actually prefer a third option, which is a basic test. It allows me to rename everything right from the dialog. This is just a matter of preference. I could easily rename things using this add-in that I have called a ReSharper, but I'm trying to avoid that. So what I'm going to do is create a new unit test for contract. So I'm going to call this contract test. You'll recall from a couple of lessons ago that one of the first steps was that we needed to locate the contract. And once we had a contract in hand, then we could make sure that it's valid. So it seems to me like the best place to start is with the contract. Getting the contract, validating the contract, and then using it to find the associated customer from our persistence layer. Okay, so let's go ahead and just select add. And what I'm going to do is rename this method, and I'll talk about the naming convention that I use a little bit later. And there are 3 or 4 popular naming conventions. And so just for the moment, let's just do this. And then I'll justify this a couple lessons from now, why we're using this format. But in a nutshell, what we want to do is talk about what's under test. In this case, the contract, I guess you could say we want to, we're testing the constructor. So I'm just using the name of the class itself, contract, and giving it a valid ID. So this is the input, or the state that I'm testing. Here's what I would expect the behavior to be, that it actually returns a contract. Okay. And so what I'm going to begin doing is designing the interface for the contract class, even though it doesn't exist yet. And that's kind of the point of using the unit tests in this manner. So I expect to get a new contract equals new contract, not contract test. And so right here, I begin to fight the IntelliSense because it wants to use names that it already knows, and I don't want to use names that I already know. In this case, I'm going to, I intend to create this contract class later in my acme.maintenance.domain project, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm just designing what I hope would be the way that I would use a new contract. So in this case, I'm going to pass in a contract ID, and then I want to assert that is true, and we want to say that the contract expiration date will be greater than date_time.now. Okay. All right. So here, it's just my first pass at this test. I might blow this test away later on, and I'm kind of doing several things all at one shot. This might not be the best example of a test, but it gets me started, and I can refactor it all a little bit later. So basically, I'm going to create a new instance of contract. I'm going to call a method passing in some contract ID that I'm hard coding to the string value contract ID, and that I would expect for it to give me back a contract that's fully populated from the persistence layer for this specific contract ID that I'm passing in. And then I'm going to check the expiration date, and it should be greater than this moment right now. So all I need to do is satisfy this unit test. And to, obviously right now it's not even going to build. So we're not going to get very far this way. What we need to do is right click on our acme.maintenance.domain project and select add a new class, and I'm going to call that class contract. Click add. And I know I'm going to need to satisfy these requirements here. And you can see as I've added it, automatically this turned from being red to now white, but there's a problem with it, is it's internal. In other words, it's not public. So if I did this, you can see now that that will go away, and it's actually turned it green, indicating that it actually sees the contract. Now we still don't have a find by ID method, nor do we have an expiration date, nor do we have any notion of an ID. So let's go ahead and add some of those things in. Now I don't have to necessarily add the ID, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know we're going to use it internally. And I know I'm going to have a date time called expiration date. And then I'm going to go public void find by ID, and I'm going to receive a contract ID as an input parameter. And then I'm just going to go this dot contract ID equals contract ID, and this dot expiration date equals, and we'll just hard code it for the moment. I just want to get this unit test working, and then I'll refactor it to actually make it work at some point. So I'm just saying whatever today's date, add a day, and that should at least satisfy the unit test. All right, so now if we take a look back, all the red has disappeared. I don't see any lines under any of the things that I typed in. So I think I'm good to go. What I'm going to do now is go to run all tests, and you can see our contract valid contract ID returns a contract is passing now. Okay, but you know, this doesn't mean a whole lot because we've hard-coded a lot of things. So we'll come back in the next lesson and we'll fix some of those things. All right? See you then.